With respect, do you not feel such structures hinder creativity? I love this comment because I used to think exactly like this. And I remember having this same discussion with a professor of mine at USC in one of my screenwriting classes. Okay, I'm gonna make this really quick because I have a client in a few hours and I wanna read her script again before I meet with her. But this is in reference to my video about the 3-act structure and me breaking down how I teach it to screenwriters. Okay, I just took my braces out. I hope you can hear me a little bit better now. Here is why I believe structure actually increases creativity and doesn't hinder creativity. And it's for 3 main reasons. Reason number 1, I like to think of structure like a container. And when we talk about storytelling, a lot, when I sit in rooms surrounded by executives or other people who are deciding whether we're going to choose a script to go forward into a program or get into a fellowship or something like that and not, a lot of times we talk about story as a container. So think about like a Tupperware dish. Whenever you pour a liquid into a Tupperware dish, the liquid can get higher and higher and higher and higher, but it doesn't go out. Whenever you have a container for your story, the story can become more intense, more heightened, more high stakes. But when it's in a container, it doesn't ever become depleted by the story going in different directions and then diminishing the intensity of the story because there isn't a tight structure, there isn't a tight container to hold it in. When there's a tight container, aka a structure, when you're working within that structure, you have the space to make decisions and then intensify them or turn them up a notch, as opposed to not having them in a container and it can go in any direction, which then waters down the intensity or the integrity of your storytelling. I hope that makes sense. The second reason is that human beings ingest stories in a very certain way. So when we talk about storytelling, all storytelling is the order of events that happen. So if I'm telling you a story, what I'm really communicating at the very base level is something happened. And then I'm deciding as a storyteller what order I'm telling you that these events happened in. That's all a story is. Human beings have an internal mechanism that absorbs certain things happening in certain order that makes them more compelling. So when we talk about the 3-act structure, it's not the only structure, but it is one of the structures that we discovered that human beings are compelled by when things happen in a certain order. And because it's been studied and proven that the audience members, the human beings in the audience, are going to be compelled by things happening in a certain order, then we've used, as storytellers in film and television, we've used that tradition to then tell stories within that dynamic of order. Not saying that you can't go outside of that, but with that being the basis, then you know how to toggle in and out of it or around it and still maintain the order of events happening similar to how human beings absorb them and feel compelled by them. And then the third reason has everything to do with getting outside of the creativity. Once you know structure really well, like the way that I know structure now, just because I teach it and I do it so often, it's ingrained. It's like memory foam, right? It's like a ingrained sort of muscle memory. And because I know structure as muscle memory, I can easily know when a story that I'm telling or a story that I'm consulting on, it's appropriate to like break a leg. So I think of structure as a skeleton. And sometimes you break a bone in a particular story because even though traditionally this should happen in the 3rd act, because of the narrative I'm telling, I know that yes, usually that works, but it doesn't work for this story for this reason. Once I know structure as muscle memory, I know when and how to break the rules and still accomplish something that's going to be compelling. So an example of this would be, I understand that endings for stories, the conclusion for a screenplay, should be both surprising and inevitable, meaning that it makes logical sense for the ending to happen. It's not illogical, but it is something that's going to be refreshing and satisfying for the audience to experience. So I know I want to accomplish that with ending. And when I use a traditional 3-act structure, usually the story is going to fall in line with that satisfying ending. But because of the story I'm telling, I may not want to go along the traditional route of the conclusion being an answer to this question. However, because I know I still want it to be satisfying, refreshing, inevitable, and surprising, that's the sort of magic spot you want to hit with the conclusion, then I may find something outside of the realm of the traditional 3-act structure, but still I know it's hitting that same emotional beat, because I know that emotional beat needs to be hit. And because I've learned structure, I can pull things from outside of the traditional structure that's still satisfying that narrative need. I hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions about structure and how it works, and how to break those rules, I have a video about how to break rules when it comes to screenwriting. But if you guys have any further questions about how to break rules in screenwriting or how structure functions, let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to answer those questions. Happy writing.